It collapses that probability wave. That is interesting. It's almost like we got to say, like, hey, there's some major science behind this. Like, if you're into this, look up the double slit experiment and stuff. But, now realize that there's a moment in what they've discovered in quantum physics that looks a lot like the way video games work, as in that whenever I'm in a certain part of the video game world, it appears. But if I'm not there, it's there, and the information is there, but it's not rendering.
It's not rendering. It's in a, what did he say? A super state or a superposition?
It could be there or not, and
oh, you're freaking me out, Chuck. Stop, dude.
I think that's important too. That when you said you wanted to talk about this topic, you said it. Not only did you say it was interesting, you said that it was bothering you, or I can't stop.
Yeah,
thinking
before.
Yeah. Because that's what starts to happen with this crap, man. It's unsettling.
ChukTomahawk, what's up, man? Happy Saturday.
Hey, happy Saturday,
dude. It's been a couple of weeks, and gamers out there, fellow listeners, apologies for that, but we had to take care of some business. Chuck had some stuff to take care of, I think. Did everything go well, man?
Cleaning, yeah. It's had a friend come into town. We got some maintenance done on the house here, and landscaping and whatnot. So yeah, definitely missed podcasting, but it was good to get that stuff done too. So
I was thinking about like uploading a solo pod, or I just I'm like, maybe I should just do a solo pod for the gamers and listeners out there. And then I was thinking, nah, I don't want to lose the few listeners that we have. Just start boring them with my ass talking about dumb shit.
God, that'd be interesting to try sometimes. Some of my favorite podcasts are some of the more popular dudes are when they do it by themselves, but they also say that it's super hard.
I did I'm not going to say the name of it, but I did maybe I have already. I hope I haven't, because we're 49 episodes in, man.
Ew.
So I don't know what we've said at this point. Very professional podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've said it yet, but I tried a podcast attempt before this, and it was just me alone.
Oh yeah,
and
I've heard that, yeah.
I was pulling it off there for a little bit, but it wasn't. I don't know. It wasn't the same. This is way more fun, and I like it a lot more having a co-host.
Yeah. It was in Spanish
by the name of
as well,
ChukTomahawk.
right? Like your first one was in Spanish, right? Like, yeah, that would make it even impossible for me. But yeah, I
what do you mean, man? Your
that.
Spanish is pretty darn good. Yo estoy ChukTomahawk.
Yeah,
I'll never
it'd probably
forget
be
the first time.
entertaining. It would be entertaining, but yeah.
So here we are, episode 49. Sorry that we're late for this one, but just had some stuff to take care of. And we were kind of like chit-chatting about what we wanted to talk about this episode. And out of the blue, Joe Rogan had a guest on. What's his name? It was a recent guest. I think it's Rizwan Virk or Virk. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name.
The Rizzler.
Or his first name. The Rizzler. the Rizzler Virk was on the show. And let me pull it up real quick, just because I don't want to make this mistake. But I know he's a video game developer, but a lot more than that. He's also an author. Yeah, it was his penultimate guest. He's an entrepreneur, video game pioneer, film producer, computer scientist, and author of several books, among them The Simulation Hypothesis and The Simulated Multiverse. So I heard this episode, and what I saw was video game developer. And I was like, oh, cool, I want to hear this interview. This guy's going to have some, it'll be about video games and everything, which it kind of is, in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't see it going the direction that it went, man.
No.
And I listened. I was getting about halfway through the episode, and I immediately messaged Chuck everyone. I was like, Chuck, this is what we should talk about. and granted, this was like yesterday morning. We've only had like, several hours, I guess, to really like do as much deep diving as we could on this, and of course, go to a bunch of other podcasts and stuff. But man, anyways, I guess it would be worthy to, just what, well, I guess we should do the intro first.
Yeah, lay it on them.
Oh, welcome gamers, non-gamers, PvEers, PvPers, and even NPCs. This is the New Wave Gaming Podcast. We don't discriminate.
Yeah.
Welcome. And I guess I want to keep. Yeah, welcome to the simulation.
As we use our illusions. Oh man, yeah. I didn't see that going that way either on that podcast, and I'll be honest, this is something I forget where I first ever heard about it. Probably maybe on like an episode of Star Talk or something. Maybe before that, but the first podcast I listened to it was probably the Neil deGrasse Tyson's podcast fairly recently about it, and I went down the rabbit hole. I think I even got an audiobook or two and listened to, and it's a
so you're invested in the simulation.
It's a super deep rabbit hole. Well, I think we all, as a collective, got introduced to it. Like even if you didn't see the movies, you're aware of the Matrix movies, and kind of. Like what's going on there to some degree, and you hear it like even people talk about red pill, blue pill, like as like sort of a turning point, and when you want to know the truth, or would you rather just pretend things are a certain way and live within an illusion, I guess, that was born out of that movie. So, and
I think if you're a gamer too, I think this hits on a level where you have a much more open mind to all of the ideas and philosophies and thought exercises that your brain is going to go through when like you start to check out all this stuff a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I found myself thinking about how we had talked about buy-in so many times, like in these survival games, like when I've talked about how when you're first in there, they look kind of clunky and stuff, but after you've played a little while, like it seems like, you're.
Oh yeah. And they talk about that in this episode.
Yeah.
Rogan talks about that with Rizwan, that kind of like supposed agreement, like you understand that these things may not actually be real or may not could never happen, but there's a little bit of an understanding, like all right,
a forgetfulness.
I'm gonna let this pass. Right, and that's kind of also, but before we jump too far ahead, you mentioned before the episode, I don't want to forget this, fellow gamers and listeners. Chuck, basically, like some of the topics these guys jump into, Rizwan and Rogan on this episode, like they go to a whole bunch of rabbit holes, right? They talk about. That's why I'm concerned. I want to try and keep this related to gaming as much as possible because they talk about religion, philosophy, quantum physics, traditional physics. They talk about like the Mandela effect and all these things. And right before I was about to hit record, Chuck's like, well, I'm sorry, Ovox, but I would like to touch on some of these deeper philosophical questions because I have some very simple answers that I was just clear. I don't know why they're complicating things so much. So apparently ChukTomahawk has the answer here to a lot of that.
Well, so yeah, maybe we should. Right. This is where you come. That's right. Little did you know, East Tennessee, the hotbed of quantum physics information. But do you have we talked a little bit about this? Maybe you have a Wikipedia definition of what like when we say. I think all this has kind of gotten lumped into what people are calling simulation theory at this point.
I've got an even better description here. Hold on, let me maximize here. Oh, there goes my neighbor. Did you hear that? It sounds like I farted. That's not me farting, listeners. That's my neighbor cranking up his motorcycle. I might have to close my window. Is that kind of loud, dude? That's kind of loud. Let me close my window real quick.
Like
1 sec.
True ambiance.
Entertain the guest, Chuck.
Hello, guest. Welcome to the quiet zone. Wow, that worked really well. That shut her down.
Did you entertain the listeners, or do I have to cut all that out?
Probably. I tried. Not really well.
Okay.
It didn't go super well.
I'll check. Anyway. So, yeah, I'm sorry about that. There might be a little hum still. Anyways, I got a great description. I got a couple of them, but I really like this one that came from a chat board on gamefacts.gamespot.com from the user Happy Guy.
Sounds knowledgeable.
It sounds legit, right?
As much
Reliable?
as Einstein probably did it and before people knew, you know, like oh.
No, I really do like his because there's a post from, it says it's from PlayStation 5. It says, "What do you think about simulation theory?" And Happy Guy posted, "The idea is basically that if you look at computer programs and virtual worlds created within them, that at some point they will become advanced enough to the point where they can 100% simulate reality. At that point, this sub-reality will eventually create or achieve the same level of advancement to create the same, and then that simulation will end up creating its own, and so on. Basically, infinite simulated worlds nested within each other, like those little." And he uses a reference, like the little Russian stacking dolls.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes on to say, "So, for example, we would live in a simulation now, then take, say, GTA and give it X amount of time for technology and programming and all of that stuff to advance, and it will eventually achieve an iteration capable of fully simulating reality, which will then rinse and repeat, creating another simulated related reality ad infinitum." Does that make sense?
It does, and this is where you often hear people say, like they kind of just throw that out there as like it is one possibility, and then they say that if you believe, you know, based on the rate of improvement of simulations now, like video games have gotten so much better from Pong to now, you know, to Ark or Starfield, like one of the most, you know, up to date ones or whatever of simulating a world, that if we multiply that by 1,000 more years of progress, that we'll definitely get there. We'll definitely get to a place that you genuinely believe. Because sometimes, you know, when I'm playing GTA now, like I can't turn off the fact that when I'm jumping the shit out of my motorcycle and it's falling, it makes me feel like I'm falling. Like genuinely does, like to the point that I want to look away. Like I've stuck a piece of too sour candy in my mouth and I want to spit it out and I can't. Like I'm just like, and I feel like
that feeling.
Yeah,
that
like
feeling
I want to.
gut?
I don't like it. Like I kind of like that it can do it to me, but when it's going on, I kind of want to look away. Like ooh, like you know, I don't want my, you know, like this. I almost feel like this can't be good for my body. Like you know, or something.
Yeah.
I'm messing with that part of me that controls my balance somehow or something more than I want to. So you know, you that's happening now. So you can imagine, you know, 1,000 more years of improvement, as long as you wanted to stretch that out, that we're going to get there. So the chances of us still being, if you accept that, they say that the chances of us being in the original first reality are way less than us being in one of those simulations. And I don't, that doesn't make sense to me. Like to me, that's almost like saying if I flipped a coin 100 times and I got heads 99 of those times, that the 100th one is more likely to be tails. And I feel like it's always 50-50. Like when I flip that coin and you know, I don't, you know, I can't explain like this.
Well, we gotta, that's where the quantum physics parts come in, but let's back up. Hold on. Let's back up. And, hey, real quick, just to be safe, Chuck, make sure that you're still recording on your Audacity, because I noticed your camera shake a couple of times. I don't know if you bumped something.
It might be like it's AI like following me, that's the universe controlling that. But
it's the simulation, man.
Yeah.
Hey, this description's way better. I probably should have read this one first, to be honest, before going into Happy Guy's description. This is from builtin.com. It says, simulation theory is a theoretical hypothesis that says that, God, I can't freaking read right now. Well, let me try over. Simulation theory is a theoretical hypothesis that says what people perceive as reality is actually an advanced, hyper-realistic computer simulation, possibly overseen by a higher being.
Mm-hmm.
That's their short description. That's a much more digestible. It kind of like sums it up. And then the Wikipedia one, which is the first one you asked for, Chuck. Sorry, I should have read this one. It was the simulation hypothesis proposes that what humans experience as the world is actually a simulated reality, such as a computer simulation in which humans themselves are constructs. There has been much debate over this topic, ranging from philosophical discourse to practical applications in computing. Okay.
Yeah. To me, it's
real
like...
quick.
Go ahead.
Real quick, because you mentioned something, and I don't want to forget because it's the perfect opportunity to mention this, but you were talking about that feeling of that sensation of falling in the video games that we play. I think you mentioned GTA in this case. Yeah, I felt it too, and I felt it in many other games, man. Like, especially in Ark, certainly, I felt it. Plenty of games, but in this interview, when Rogan's interviewing Rizwan Virk, one of the reasons why he said that he kind of like stumbled upon this whole simulation theory thing, and it kind of like he started to look into it more, was because that he said that right around when he sold his last video game company back, I think he said 2014 or 2016, it was one of those. He said that he had gotten his hands on like a VR game that was ping pong. And he said that it was like an old version of it. So it was connected and wired, and it was just huge. And he said that he had been playing it long enough that at one point his brain kind of just forgot that he was actually in a video game, in a VR video game, playing ping pong, and that when he went to set the paddle down, that he almost fell or something like that.
Yeah, he went to lean against the ping pong table. There was no table.
Yeah, exactly. So when you said that, it kind of reminded me of that, and I just didn't want to forget that. And I think there's something to that VR, side of this whole discussion too, like how our VR games are starting to get a grip, man. Like they're starting to become a force to be recognized within this whole video game industry. PlayStation's got theirs. I think there's this other one called Oculus or something. I don't know. I'm not very familiar with VR. I've only used it when I went to Japan. They had a whole bunch set up, and I can remember putting on that headset, dude, and it was insane, man. It really like. The way I could describe it is that I felt like it was activating more of my senses than just sitting on a couch and looking at TV. Like absolutely. More of the game was was engaging more of my perceptions and senses.
I think that's happening, nuts. And it's simultaneously blocking out some bad information. Like when I'm playing the game and I can still see my overhead fluorescent lights, and I can hear my dog clicking across the floor over there and stuff. It's pulling me out.
Lila.
It's pulling me out. But
you're when pulling me out, Lila.
But when I put the headphones on and I got the VR headset or whatever, like Lila could be being attacked by a band of coyotes or something, and I'm just like oblivious to it, and yeah. So and I think it's interesting. Like that comes up a lot in the simulation theory. It like they even go back to like ancient Greek philosophers or whatever, where they talk about crossing the river of forgetfulness. Like it's when you finally forget that you're not that you're in a simulation, like, and just start accepting it as reality, then you're there. And it's amazing how a lot of the religions and even the simulation theory all kind of lead us back to a similar place. Like they've all been kind of saying this isn't the real.
Oh, this physical world isn't the real the real deal.
Yeah, that there's some soul that's in you that's observing your mind and all those little things that are going on, but it exists beyond that in some sort of consciousness level and some other place, and we're in some sort of experience apparently.
Damn, man. Okay, so yeah. Then okay. Tying gaming back into this, something I wanted to really unpack with you, or just kind of like just discuss and have fun with, is the whole. Sorry, it keeps bumping my mic here. The whole, rendering what we see versus rendering what we see in video games. You know, the whole if you see it, render it. If you're not seeing it, it's not rendering it. You know,
collapses that probability wave. That is interesting. It's almost like we got to say, like, hey, there's some major science behind this. Like, if you're into this, look up the double slit experiment and stuff. But, you know, now realize that there's a moment in what they've discovered in quantum physics that looks a lot like the way video games work, as in that whenever I'm in a certain part of the video game world, it appears. But if I'm not there, it's there, and the information is there, but it's not rendering.
It's not rendering. It's in a, what did he say? A super state or a superposition?
It could be there or not, you know, and
oh, you're freaking me out, Chuck. Stop, dude.
I think that's important too. That when you said you wanted to talk about this topic, you said it. Not only did you say it was interesting, you said that it was bothering you, or I can't stop.
Yeah,
thinking
before.
Yeah. Because that's what starts to happen with this crap, man. It's unsettling.
It's like because let me put it to you this way, and I want listeners like visualize this with me here, but like. The only reason I know that there's not like an assassin murderer behind me about to cut my throat is because I know that Chuck via the camera can see behind me, and he would have said, dude, there's someone behind you that's about to cut your throat. But otherwise, I don't know that. I cannot see behind myself right now.
True enough.
Am I right, Chuck?
True enough.
You can.
I mean, you can hear, you can hear, and you can sense, you know, and you have intuition. Like, I would bet, you know, that if trouble was really coming,
I know my door's locked. There's no one in my apartment.
Other parts of your body start to say, "Hey, look back there," you know, like
shit would start to fucking pucker up.
yeah. But yeah, like you say, like relating this to video games, I think that's the best like analogy that rendering thing, and even the guy that was on Joe Rogan there, Rizwan, he says like it's not a great analogy, that the quantum physics is way more complicated, and you know like it's almost like we're looking for that's an example of limited computing resources creating a world, and the world we're talking about should not have those problems. Like, you know, for it to be as real as we're talking, like a reality replacement of sorts, like it can't, you know, I can't see lag, like, you know.
No, and it, I mean, it gets deep, man. Like, and I think that's why somewhere in there the subject comes up regarding technological maturity of a species. I think there's different levels to how technologically advanced or mature a society or a world, a community can get. I don't remember if there's 3 or 4 levels or maybe even 5. I don't remember the name of the person that proposed this theory, but like the people at the top of the scale, for example, are capable of harnessing the absolute 100% energy of the sun via the Dyson sphere and all of these different things, right? So it would be a type of society, a type of culture that has reached that level of technological advancement and maturity, that they would be able to to simulate these. I think what Rizwan mentioned them. He mentioned them as like historical or legacy simulations or something like that. I don't remember what he said. Ancestry simulate, like, you know, someone would be actively doing this.
Yeah, and they tried to speculate maybe to learn about their own history or you know, their own origin stories
and then he proposed like there could be like 3 different ways that this could be like. There's 3 ways that this may or may not be happening. One is, remember he said like NPC, one would be
or RPG or
no, that was another thing. And okay, let's get it. Dude, how about that? How about that, dude?
Well, and I think like it's just like you say, the video game analogies keep coming up, and I think that's why we're here. You know, that's why we're talking about that on our podcast today. Is that, like, to me, it added some validation to this industry in general. Like obviously these people are like Rizwan and the other developers, and you know what we follow as our one of our passions. Is this just gave it a whole new importance in my book? Like,
dude, in my book, it scared the shit out of me. Are we NPCs or are we an RPG character? Are we PCs or NPCs, dude? Are you an NPC in someone else's fucking shit, dude? Then who around you is a PC?
All right. Yeah.
If are you a PC or are you an NPC?
And something
I hope I'm not an NPC, dude.
they didn't touch on, and one of the things that I think makes the difference are memories. Like memories seem to be something like when we meet an NPC character in a game, it has a set of memories and a backstory and all that, but it doesn't appear to remember us interacting. It's almost like I can kind of, it's like we start with a clean slate fairly every time. And that seems to be, as these chat GPTs and things get more and more complex, that's what's being added. Like now when you chat with GPT, it remembers your last conversation. So when I say, make me an outline in this style, and I can say like, yeah, that's good, but make it a little funnier, or make it in the style of so-and-so. And it remembers that information. It seems like those memories are a thing.
But you just said it yourself, dude. They're already addressing that. So it's a thing that's becoming an old thing that's going to become a thing of the past, right? Especially if we've got these companies working on their quantum computers with what are they called? Qubits?
Yeah. Oh, you mean as far as them addressing it as NPCs and
yeah, because there's NPCs already on games that we play that if you interact with them in a certain way and then you come back to them later in the game, depending on how you interacted with them the first time, their comportment will change. You're right.
I'm nervous. It appears to be on a rail, though.
I don't want to be an NPC, Chuck. I don't want to be an NPC. I'm scared. Chuck.
You want to have some free will,
I want free will. I want this to be my RPG. This is, we're doing this podcast because we're carving our own path in this simulation. If this is a simulation, I hope I'm a PC in an RPG, not an NPC in someone else's, multi-massive, multiplayer, whatever, MMO, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know.
That's really where during that whole interview, that's really where I was like, what the fuck? What?
I feel like maybe I'm a little more comfortable with it. I feel like even if you were an NPC, you would feel like you were an RPG. Most NPCs appear to not know it. I think that'd be the trouble. If you knew it and you still were there, and at that point you have free will. Just that knowledge alone is going to collapse that, I think.
And that was the plot of The Matrix.
Yeah, yeah.
Holy shit, dude.
Yeah. Just that little seed alone, is going to grow. And
where the problem would be where if you did know that you were an NPC, that's The Matrix.
And at that point, you're not anymore.
He discovers it because it wasn't rendering fast enough. Remember, he started noticing these
and he's off script immediately, pretty much. And at that point, you are sort of exhibiting free will, and yeah, a lot of things get muddy, but yeah, it's incredibly disturbing. And I think it's interesting that, like I say, this guy's considered one of a game developer is considered one of the experts on it, now, and has written books about it. And I think that's one of the more exciting takeaways from this. As far as the freaky part, I think I ultimately I have to shut that off. I think after we talk about this, I'll intentionally kind of, not think about it.
It's go start a new session on Arc.
Yeah, just something because I do, like I say, I don't know that it's complete thought. I do think the memories, again, one of the thing they talked about that they felt like was someone had said was the best proof that this is true, the simulation theory is true, is something called the Mandela effect. And it's that some memories, it appears, some significant events and real world things that exist, some people appear to remember differently, and almost like in a large scale that we can't quite explain. And the first, what it's named after is Nelson Mandela. Apparently, a lot of people remember that he died in the 90s in prison, when in fact he lived on until 2013 and was president of South Africa during a large portion of that time, had another funeral that was on TV and everything.
Yeah,
there was that weird
world leaders attended and stuff.
Well, a lot of people remember that from the first one, but I remember the second one. It rained and there was this dude that was doing sign language that turned out to not actually know sign language, and some weird things went on that I remember. But they have the same memories of the first one, and they try to explain this this is, it's on too large of a scale. And there's a bunch of other ones like the Berenstain Bears. A lot of people remember as the Berenstain Bears. A lot of people remember Curious George the monkey as having a tail, when it turns out he was a chimpanzee, and chimpanzees don't have tails, and all these different little things. But what I remember learning at some point is that whenever you remember a memory, the first time that you remember it, you're remembering the actual event. But the next time you remember it, you're remembering the memory. And it degrades over time. And that's something, as I've gotten older, I've come to realize that, that system is incredibly imperfect. And
but not in the computing world. I mean, you're talking about save data. You're talking about saving your game before shutting down.
Yeah,
right?
But
And
apparently whatever, even if I am an NPC or an RPG in that game, the way it works,
or a PC.
the way a playable character in that game, or it appears that that's how memories work, because, like I say, it's proven over and over again. Like eyewitness testimony is some of the worst, most unreliable testimony that our own biases come into that. And he talked about that in his interview with Rogan. He said, it makes sense that a Jewish family would remember the Berenstain Bears as the Berenstain Bears, because, that's a Jewish ending to a name or whatever, sort of your local existence, plays a role in how you remember these things. And I feel like I see that all the time, and I can't give you a specific example, but I do remember you and I were playing Ark at one point, and something had happened in the game that didn't make sense. Almost appeared to be a glitch of sorts, or something we had gone through the steps to do did not happen. And I introduced the idea of that you had misremembered it somehow. And you were like, Chuck. like as if it was an impossibility, and we had a laugh about it, and I remember thinking at that time, he's laughing about the fact that I thought that he couldn't misremember it, and from my older person perspective, I was laughing about the fact that you still trust your memory, and I'm not saying
I don't even remember this now.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's that I'm right, completely or whatever, but I do remember having sort of an exchange like that about something in Ark, and
it sounds like us.
Yeah, yeah, and I think to your defense, it came true,
and that part definitely sounded like me.
It wasn't you misremembering it, that had occurred, but I as we were just brainstorming as what the hell could have happened, or whatever, and. Yeah, I think there's a part of me that just I've seen my memory, like my biases come out in my memory so many times that I just don't trust it. It's almost...
That's human.
Yeah.
And maybe that's okay, so maybe what you're discussing right here is an argument against simulation theory.
Yeah, that's my explanation.
That's exactly what you're saying, the whole memory thing.
Yeah, their best example of why this is happening, I feel like I can shoot down immediately. It's just the way we remember shit. And and like I say, you're not remembering the original event. When you remember it, you're remembering your memory of it. And one of the reasons I know that is because emotions get attached to it. And whenever I remember, like when we remember video games that we loved as a kid, like those happy emotions come back with them. It's not just a piece of data in a computer like you would think the simulation is. It has like a whole set of,
and some of them,
of
memory
like
of
things
feelings.
that go with it, emotions and context that is to me what explains like that Mandela effect and
yeah. But what did Rizwan when the memory? Because I remember Rogan bringing up memories as one of the things. Like, yeah, but what about memories? Like, but he also says like, oh. But he said, I remember him saying that in a simulation, memories can be easily like,
added
into the data.
Yeah, it was added in the movie Total Recall. Like that was one of the hardest parts. I forget for the protagonist. I guess it was Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like to accept is that all that thing,
false
all those
memories.
things that he remembered, like were implanted or whatever. And
yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah. And then I remember that they reference also that book called The Man in the High Castle, where apparently like they ran back a simulation, except for it went further into the future or something like this, where the protagonist was in a world where World War II had gone differently.
And the Japanese
Japan and
had won.
Germany. Yeah, Germany and Japan had won.
And split up the United States.
They split up the dude, and like, and then he comes. I don't know how, but can you imagine like a scenario like that, like where you have two memories? Dude, I know. It's like, that's what I'm saying.
All
like,
those started flooding back. I guess I can, because like I say, I feel like this doesn't go too far. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I trust my memory to some degree, but like, I always keep on the table that, that whole system has just been fooled somehow.
And the thing is that behind this door that this big door of simulation theory or rendering fake worlds like we see in video games and these fake realities is, in theory, we have a higher power behind, an entity, a being, whatever, maybe a technologically advanced society like the Q from Star Trek or something like that. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine? That's super advanced, right? Those guys are like, never mind, that was a bad example, but you know what I'm trying to get at. And if you got these like technologically advanced beings behind the scenes running simulations, let's say that they have a data set of NPCs running in these different simulations. There might be several ChukTomahawks, dude. And if somehow, some way that data cross transfers over, that would be a scenario in which you might have these two different memories, And then they also bring up like the different realities and different dimensions where the traditional physicists start to have issues, because they were like, well, what do you mean? How can all these different physical worlds in different dimensions just start splitting off every time a person makes a little decision differently? Mm-hmm. It's like, fuck, man. Huh? I
know it's incredibly disturbing.
And that brings me back to the memory thing, like, and the false memories, the different, the total recall scenario type thing, there's a lot to it.
And like I say, I'm not sure it's a place for me to spend a lot of my time thinking about it. I think a lot of like your layman terms, like sort of reactions to this, like people will say, like, if you ask them how they know that they're living in reality, like we always like the litmus test in a dream is to pinch yourself. Like, and I think, they use the example in that podcast of, a guy will kick a rock or whatever and be like, ow, like, or whatever. And that's, but you can definitely see by what they're saying, like that could definitely, if I had a big cable stuck in the back of my head, like there in the Matrix, that was linked into my brain, like, and giving that information, as it might have came up my spinal cord to say pain through my nervous system, like if it's giving it the same, jolt there, like it won't that's not going to prove it. Like, so,
man. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what caught my attention in this interview with Rizwan was that whenever like Rogan had kind of like, yeah, but you know, what about this, you know, and what about that, and he kind of like he had, you know, at least theoretical. He had good answers from the theoretical standpoint, you know, like what was
the Schrodinger's cat was a good one. Like that gets brought up all the time to sort of like simply explain, you know, like superposition or whatever. And he said that it's not that the cat isn't dead or alive. It's that we don't know yet because we haven't looked, like, or whatever. And they're basically saying it. No, it can be alive and dead at the same time, and
until it's measured. That's the quantum physics thing, though. But what I was going to say is regarding what you mentioned about kicking rock. It's like, okay, you kick the rock, you have a physical presence there, but then this guy says, yeah, but if you get that, like if you take something that's physical and you start zooming in, and you can zoom in more, and then you zoom in more, and there's only a certain point to which we have the technology to be able to zoom in, but if you keep on zooming and zooming and zooming in, eventually you're just going to get to particles. That's insane, dude. Like when you think about that, it's like, well, then, okay.
And he said that the particles, all they could be were just a description, like of whether they were spinning in a certain direction or, you know, like sort of these qualities. And most of it was open space.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that hurts. Like, but you know, and I think once you get past that, like, you know, whenever they say that argument, the next thing they say is like, why do I care? Like, you know, like what, if this is or isn't true, what the fuck am I going to do with that information? Like, you know, like I just immediately said, like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around and think about some other shit. 'Cause I know this is probably, you know, a dead end road. Like, I'm going to either go crazy or, you know, become, you know, intolerable to my friends as I sit around and point this out all the time, like, and make them feel uncomfortable. Like, it just seems like,
yeah, it's hard to keep it. I think, well, maybe not hard, but for the purposes of like a gaming podcast, you know, you can only relate it with gaming so much, and then eventually you're gonna like kind of fall off the side of the curve into deeper philosophical, like existential type questions. Well, and it's like, well,
yeah,
you know, like what I think when I heard this interview, what from the gaming standpoint, what interested me was to think of the fact that gaming is advancing very much. You know, there's a lot of troubles in the gaming world. If you're a gamer, you know what those are. Like, you know, we're dealing with crappy games being delivered on their initial release, lots of money grabs, you know, lots of games that we love have just really dropped in quality. You know, a lot of indie games are becoming more popular because, you know, just a whole bunch of interesting stuff is going on in the gaming world. But the technology continues to advance, and you know, we're seeing a lot of VR now. And what my interest would be is like, what is gaming going to look like in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, especially with VR, and what will those simulated worlds that we play in look like, and how close will they be to something that kind of like simulates what we're talking about here, which would be a hyper realistic reality in which everything is indistinguishable, you know? Well, that's what's interesting to me.
And like, to me, it has to have a much larger scope, because most of the games that we have appear to just focus. It almost seems like, you know, when they talk about the difference between AI and AGI, like, you know, that general intelligence, like some, you know, we can have a chatbot right now that sort of specializes in writing and essays and things like that, but just a general intelligence, like, you that to me. So, now we have like, I mentioned to you, I just saw a bum simulation game, and there's a military simulation game or whatever. But what if there was just a life simulation game? I mean, we've had the Sims and some things like that, but something that had the same scope as, we're talking that, like to accept, to me, a simulation that is this complex as life is. If I say this is true, okay, this is a simulation. Like, it's a hell of a lot more than any.
You mean like Second Life? Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, but I have heard of a few things. We covered that in one of our episodes. I think something about Second Life, but I feel like in our games, like when we're playing Ark and we're like, oh shit, we can go fishing. Like, it added one more little scope of life, and we're like, wow, like this is like we've got, or whatever. But like, what if it
it's
all?
Like, damn, this fish just gave me a freaking advanced sniper rifle.
Well, for the
Sick.
simulation to be everything, that's included in the world, like dating and, having a career and, all the things, like that seems like that seems like a large scope to me. And then, yeah, like to start in on that question, I asked ChatGPT that question of like, what might happen with this? And one of the more disturbing things is that, obviously, if you could figure out how the simulation work and become an expert in that, like, you would have a tremendous amount of power. Like, as far as,
yeah. I mean, that's Google, that's Amazon, those people already exist. The ones that own these quantum computers, the very few that own quantum computers, and they're trying to figure out, how to use the qubit. Something you just said a second ago, I think is I wanna push back a little. You mentioned, like, imagine a virtual reality game or a simulation, a game that simulates the full scope of life.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would ever happen. And the reason I say that, maybe not ever, but the reason I say that is because, one of the reasons why, and this kind of also ties back into the why, like, why does this stuff matter? Why does anyone care? Something that Rizwan mentioned in his interview with Rogan was, well, why do we play video games? We do it to, there's several reasons, but the one that he mentioned that I think he was really trying to drive home is so that we can experience things that we could otherwise never experience in what we perceive as real life. And then Joe goes on to add, without any real life consequences. Mm-hmm. So with that, it makes a lot of sense, because these are also corporations, right? With shareholders and stockholders, and they need to make money. They need to be profitable, and then there's another thing they mentioned about video games, that they need to be easy to play but hard to master, right? So would a game based on real life and with the full scope of real life be marketable? Would it be something that we would be into? It's hard to say. I don't know, because it wouldn't be.
And I will point out that when we tried to imagine why these future people that had this power were doing it, we said it was to learn about their origins and their history and stuff. We didn't talk about money or profitability or anything in our whys. Like, yeah,
that's just Rizwan's. Those are just his, like,
But anybody that asks that, like, is why would that a future society create that technology or whatever? I guess I'm assuming that once they've got to that point, money and a lot of that stuff are off the table. Like,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. They're just. It's kind of like Star Trek.
Yeah, I don't know what money Picard makes to do what he does, but like, I assume it's pretty good. But like, it don't seem to be his motivation for doing it.
No, dude, he just wants to explore new worlds and stuff.
Yeah. Boldly go where no one's gone before.
Yeah. God, I'm gonna have to rewatch The Next Generation. Okay, well, we still got a little bit of time. Still got 10 minutes to knock out here. Gosh, man, fascinating stuff. But yeah, I think, especially with VR, I think these VR games are just going to get better and better and better. And of course, the software and the technology behind that powers these video games and that renders them is going to get better and better and better. Something, going back to rendering, not to backtrack too bad, but something that really blew my mind when we first started playing Ark, or when I first started playing Ark, because it was the first time I'd ever experienced a game like this, was the whole fact that even if I signed out and it was on my TV, it's now no longer rendering. Mm-hmm. What blew my mind was that it is still rendering for someone.
That things were still going on.
It's still
it's a
there.
Big step in making it more authentic than or more lifelike.
Yeah, because that's basically that's the equivalent of me falling asleep.
Yeah.
Like when I'm here in my room and in my apartment and I go to my bed and I close my eyes and I fall asleep, dude.
Keeps on
it's like
going.
I turned my TV off, but shit's still going, Chuck. Shit is still running on this fucking server of real life, man.
Yeah.
Oh, it freaks, dude. It's so insane. It really gets you thinking, man.
Well, something I heard said about sleep too, like if you believe in evolution, sort of beings, it had to be something that was very detrimental to human safety, like to be asleep, like when you were out out surviving, like I wasn't able to lock my doors and protect myself from mountain lions and all the creatures about. Like you would think if it was possible for that to have evolved out of us, like that we didn't need it, it would have, because it is a very vulnerable state to be in. And nature seems to avoid that as much as it can, and we need 8 hours of it a day, like 1/3 of our existence, like is it. So yeah, that's an important part.
Hence the need for shelter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not sure what to completely take away from this. I love the discussion, and I think it does make me hopeful for the future of video games and kind of how what the power of them could be, but. I want to say that when I'm discussing all these things, something I noticed, like as I was watching that and listening and feeling that uncomfortable feeling, like what keeps me from really freaking out is part of me just don't buy it. And
why not though, dude? I mean, these are all just side quests in our own simulations.
I thought a lot about that, and I will say that even though I'm not like a super duper religious person, I feel like part of growing up in the Bible Belt and everything is that I've felt some faith in that, obviously I have no diamond proof or whatever, and I try to be incredibly biased and logical about it or whatever, but some.
Oh, you mean non-biased or bias?
Yeah,
isn't bias
both, I guess, to some degree, but non-biased, and that's probably what I meant to say right there, and just something right, I don't believe that, I guess I still think I'm going to see my grandma someday, and I don't want to believe anything different,
dude, it's like when the lights go out, dude, your eyes open up like in that Matrix movie, remember, where they're reborn into the real world?
Yeah.
And those pods and those weird egg. Oh, dude,
they're in Zion
so
or
insane.
whatever.
Yeah, they're on some ship or whatever.
And it's just nasty.
I don't remember. Oh, dude,
speaking, but I and there's another part of me that if there's nothing after this, I feel like that's sort of underrated as well. Because I don't remember before I was born. They did talk about that in the podcast at some point, where at some point they were doing this hypnotism things, and they would go back to people's childhood, and on the reg he found people that would go past that, to some other life or something, and
yep.
Yeah, see, I don't remember anything before I was born. I don't even remember past 3, I don't think. Maybe if you brought it back up or something, really get some context or something. But so yeah, I think there's a little comfort in there for me that that's not it, and I think video games are going to get better, but I don't know that they'll ever get this good.
It's easy for the mind to really start doing somersaults and backflips and front flips and stuff, especially like if you go and like something that when I was listening to this pod and looking online and information, my mind kind of went back to that time when we talked about how someone had built a computer inside of Minecraft.
Yep.
Like they built a processor or something. That, my mind went to that. My mind went to like, and eventually I was just like, this is insane.
Yeah.
And I think for some people, like when they hear like simulation theory and then read a description about what it is, they'll kind of like put it on the same shelf as flat Earth, or just all those types of just things that are bonkers. But I don't know. This one's it's fascinating stuff. Obviously I don't think it's real. Obviously, I think we're all just biological humans, and we have however much time we're going to have here before our bodies give up. Depending on our life circumstances and what life throws at us and everything. And then if we have kids or not, they'll grow up and go through the same biological process, and then they'll pass away and decompose and so on and so forth. That's what I think is going on here.
Mm-hmm.
An afterlife? I hope so.
Yeah.
Really do. I because there's something in here that's that's an energy, electrical, synapses, energy. There's something on here going in energy, and I hope that energy goes somewhere else after this, and we'll see what happens there. I have no idea. But anyways, yeah, obviously I don't think that this is a simulation, but when you look at the hypothesis or the theory, and then obviously you keep a very open mind and just entertain it for a little bit, and you look at the different arguments and the observations and the comments and the actual scientific testing that, like you mentioned, with the observer and the double split. Yep. Just look at all that stuff, keep an open mind. It's, and especially if you're a gamer, and you're used to playing games like, Grand Theft Auto or Ark or any of these any of these video games. There's tons of video games. Even if you go back to look at the old games from the 80s and the 90s, this stuff won't seem too far-fetched.
No, and Rogan hit on it when he said, like, with lack of real-world consequences. But to me, like, there are consequences in games. Some of them are different. Like, just like in GTA, like, dying and losing your stuff is very different than dying and losing your stuff in Ark. They're different, parameters of how it works or whatever. And I think, like, in our current reality, like, that's just, the consequences are what they are. Mm-hmm. and I feel like there's going to be an afterlife no matter what, like even if it's nothing. And I don't know.
Oh damn, Chuck. What? Wait, what? You just messed me up even more right there.
Well, even if it's nothing, like that count, like life, it's still going to be after my life or whatever. Like,
stop, dude. Stop.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Like, why did they go here? Like, how is this what developing games leads you to? Is my question.
Why did you even want to talk about this? Wasn't this your idea? I'm just
no, I was excited when you said it because hell, I think I mentioned it back at the time we were talking about that computer being built inside of Minecraft because.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I've been into it for a huge minute because to me, like I love it when you mention that just some people are going to say this is insane and just like dismiss it or whatever. But like, I love it when you ask them people like, well, what do you believe? And it's like, well, such and so came back from the grave and like, and you're like, was dead for, and you're like. Well, that also sounds a little crazy.
Oh, you mean like with respect to like the afterlife?
Yeah, or any religion in general. Like you'll say simulation theory, and they're like, well, that's crazy, and then like it turns out they're X religion, and there are a lot of like.
Yeah. Well, and that's again not to backtrack, but. Not Warner Vinci, but Rizwan, the guy in the interview, they talked about that, right? How it, like he looked, well, at least his comments were that he had looked at a lot of religion and a lot of religious views and how they see the afterlife and how they see these, if there's anything to be said about this topic. And his perception is that they all kind of had something in common about this, there being another life, another reality, another realm after this one.
Right. And this not necessarily this almost being like a test of sorts and of an experience. And
And therefore, why would it be so far-fetched one over the other or the other over one, right? So kind of like what you're saying. It's like, well, they're all kind of like, saying there's something after this.
Yeah. And people genuinely like don't like to hear that generally. Like, like around where I live, like people like, just over how deep you get dunked in the water when they're baptizing you or whatever, they feel like, them people they're nuts. Like,
Hey,
I'm a deep water Southern Baptist.
On the New Wave Gaming Pod. We'll go there.
Yeah. So to me, that's one of the reasons I try to have respect for everyone's views and not dismiss them, because like,
oh, hell yeah,
we all don't know. And if that's getting you through the night and keeping you from, doing bad things and producing happiness in your life, like more power to you, in my book. But man, this is one, like we mentioned, we wanted to keep it towards gaming because it goes everywhere, man. It goes like into religion and philosophy. Because, I think one thing that should be asked is like, how we behave in GTA. Like,
hey, all things considered, I think we do pretty well compared to other people.
But if this is true, like why don't
maybe Pepe not so much?
Why aren't we trolling the world a little more? Like you know what I mean? Like why?
Well, dude, and I think you were asking like we got to wrap this one up soon, but you were mentioning like that something about them becoming more real and more real and more real, and it would be hard to simulate real life even in a simulation, like the scope of it you were saying. But I'd also say we've got Rockstar, man, who they pay very close attention to what everyone's saying out there, and and one thing that everyone wants to be able to do is be able to get inside more buildings, right? There's this huge world that they've created, but you can't really go inside a lot of the buildings, just the stores, the ammunitions, the suburban clothing. So, but and they wanted to see all these different, and every time they deliver on a new GTA game, man, you can do a little bit more and a little bit more, and you can go over here and you can go inside here and you can interact this way and you can interact that way. I mean, not to be not to perv out at all, but I remember the first time like you could go in a strip club in GTA versus the first time you could go in a strip club and actually get a lap dance and see a little titty. I'm like, ooh,
now we're doing something.
They're delivering, baby.
And
simulate this.
Well, and something to remember too is like people get bored in real life. Like even if they created a video game that was this good, you would have people that somehow magically couldn't entertain themselves or something, I'm sure. Yeah. So it's a tough one, man. It's a like incredibly deep subject. I would love to like see that dude, do some more stuff. I'd like to look into his books and, maybe what he did in gaming, because,
Yeah. Well, we might have to come back to this one maybe with a little bit, we can prep some more discussion around the gaming side of this. And I'm sure we'll see technology also advance in this sense, like where we see VR get better and better and better. There'll probably be new devices or new software coming out
and AI.
that involve with AI involved, and we'll be able to come back to this topic, I'm sure. I have no doubt.
Yeah, when NPCs start getting AI, a lot better AI in them, I'm excited for that part. And hell,
maybe that's the question we should wrap up with, Chuck. Are we NPCs or are we PCs in this real life RPG? You tell me.
Yeah.
Chuck T. Did that all just rhyme?
I don't know, but whoever's controlling me, man, like if I am being controlled, like I want to talk to the guy that developed the knees, especially. I feel like he phoned that shit in. Like,
I'm gonna vote that we're probably PCs, just carving our own paths here. Well, shoot, man, cool. This has been a deep one. Episode 49. Hope everyone enjoyed out there, and we'll be back with our next episode 50, man.
Boom.
Dang, we're getting there, one step at a time. All right, no need to drag her on. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Chuck.
Appreciate you, man. It was a good time.